This Charlottesville thing, we know that's one of the chief debunked hoaxes. But yet it's a hoax that unbelievably someone whose dignity and eloquence and I admired like millions of other people for years and years and years just repeated that hoax on the campaign trail for Kamala Harris. That person's Barack Obama, President Obama, just repeated that, which means he knowingly, and this is a hard thing for people to accept, he knowingly and deliberately took a lie based on racial hatred and broadcasted it to millions of people. And that to me is, it's again, beyond dishonest.
Folks, that is Jordan Bach, who I discovered on X. And this is why I highly encourage you to subscribe to this podcast. Please subscribe so that the episodes just show up automatically for you, because you don't want to miss people like this. You are going to, I hope, really appreciate this interview. It's one of the most satisfying interviews I've done on this podcast in the 3 years we've been doing it. His name is Jordan Bach. On Twitter, he says, seeking truth. Quote, Jordan is one of the few voices you should listen to amidst the modern day cacophony. That's from The Advocate. He's a gay man who left the left. He left the left. He left the Democrat Party, and he's going to explain very thoughtfully why he did that and how, maybe more importantly, how he did it. He is seriously one of the most interesting people I've interviewed. And I can't wait for you to listen to Jordan Bach. Well, Jordan, as often in my podcast, you and I just met about 5 minutes ago. We've been chatting through our DMs on X, but I'm really pleased to have you. I am often curious about people who have gone through some sort of evolution politically, and clearly you have. Your pinned tweet, if I may read it here, Jordan Bach, and it's at Jordan Bach, B-A-C-H. I'm a gay guy who's left the left, a lifelong Democrat, not anymore. I'm voting for Donald Trump. I used to think voting Democrat was the compassionate choice, but today's Democrat Party, it's become a war-hungry censorship machine, cynically using identity politics and media manipulation to divide us, and lawfare to eliminate its political opponents. You go on, but this is a great jumping off point. So are you saying that until this change, this shift in your politics, you were a Democrat voter constantly?
I was raised by two classic sort of Kennedy Democrat parents in Massachusetts, and it was just all I knew. And I think that's the case for so many Democrats, so many people of any political persuasion, you know. You're just raised a certain way and you don't question it all that much. And I began to question it, I would say, right after the 2016 election, when I remember that night in New York City with my friends, all being shook that he could win. When just that week, New York Times said, Hillary had something like a 80% or higher chance of winning. And when all the panels on the TV shows I used to watch on CNN, MSNBC, there were panels of people laughing and mocking with, derisive, mocking laughter at the notion of Trump ever becoming president. So when he became president the next morning and what seemed like a gray cloud descended on Manhattan and people were walking around so glum, I was one of them because I really didn't understand much about politics. I knew I was a compassionate person. I knew I was a fair person who cares about equality and that sort of thing. So I thought that's what Democrats are. I'm not in the party of racist bigots and homophobes. I'm gay after all. I didn't really know much. I just sort of trusted what I saw on CNN and MSNBC. And so I started, I would say after 2016, I began with the simple question, how did they get it so wrong? Mm-hmm. How did they get it so wrong? And as I began to ask that question and genuinely attend to the answer with an open mind, I was really curious. I wasn't out to blame anyone. I really wanted to figure out the answer. How did they get it so wrong? And it took me a couple years to sort of fully unravel the nonsense and, as you might call it, the bullshit of the left that had been really hammered into me for so many years. You know, it takes some time to imprint people and condition them, and it takes some time to condition to I would say see how you've been conditioned so that you can unwind it.
You know, that's such a great question that you posed. How did they get it so wrong? Because that's an intellectually honest and curious question. And I'm still wondering if the Democrats have asked themselves that time or any time since how they got it wrong. So as you began to explore that question, what were some of the first things that helped you answer it?
I will say this, going back, I tell everyone who's beginning this journey of asking questions, which I know so many people are, so many of my own friends are, who have lagged behind me a bit, are beginning to uncover the things that I uncovered. And I say to them, take notes, start a note on your iPhone and just drop in the links of things that woke you up a bit or that surprised you or shocked you. Because today, I wish I'd done that. I wish I could go back and sort of like Hansel and Gretel with breadcrumbs, retrace my tracks so that I could sort of lead people down the same exact path. Right. And so it's all sort of a blur. It was so fast. It actually wasn't that fast in time, but to me, it felt like whiplash. Again, because so many ideas that I previously just accepted to be true were sort of upended. But certainly the portrayal of Donald Trump himself as a personality, let alone conservative versus leftist policy or politics for the moment, his personality, I was conditioned like, you know, for example, my mother, and I asked her permission to talk about this sort of thing. And she said, of course. My mom had what's called Trump derangement syndrome, or TDS, full blown. And my mom is one of the kindest people, one of those people who truly wouldn't hurt a fly. So to walk in and see my mom viscerally angry watching David Muir on ABC World News Tonight, viscerally angry at the clips that they chose of him, was like unsettling for me. And I started to look into each of the clips that they were playing and watch the whole thing. If that meant I had to watch an hour long of him doing what he sometimes does, which is ramble a bit, I did it. But I wanted to hear where he was coming from and what he was saying. Turns out in 99% of the cases, it wasn't true. The clips and the editing and the editorializing that they were doing was not just, a mischaracterization, but a flat out dishonest lie. And that's when, and I'm talking about the 2017 Charlottesville, find people on both sides. Then you move into injecting bleach. Yep. During COVID, people say, but he told people, to inject bleach in their veins. And you listen to that and you're like, there's no way that anyone said that. Right. But then you see some edited clip and you're like, wait, did he say that? But here's the thing. Of course, I trust CNN and MSNBC, people who are staking their careers to tell me the truth. Most people don't have the time to sit down and research things fully, nor are most people that genuinely open-minded and curious and willing to have their minds changed. But I did, and looked up the bleach thing, untrue, completely out of context. This Charlottesville thing, we know that's one of the chief debunked hoaxes. But yet it's a hoax that unbelievably, someone whose dignity and eloquence and I admired like millions of other people for years and years and years, just repeated that hoax on the campaign trail for Kamala Harris. That person's Barack Obama, President Obama, just repeated that, which means he knowingly, and this is a hard thing for people to accept, he knowingly and deliberately took a lie based on racial hatred and broadcasted it to millions of people. And that to me is, it's again, beyond dishonest. it's deeper than that. And so I think it reaches the soul, really, of Americans at some point who realize what's happening. And so for me, it wasn't just a sort of political awakening. It was a sort of like a soul awakening, a realization that I've been manipulated, I've been lied to, and some people will take that in their lives. I'm not one of those people. And I could have on social media decided to not talk about it and continue on privately, vote the way I vote, shut up and continue doing what I was doing. But it felt a little scary to me to start talking about it. But it was the right kind of scary. I was like, you know what? I want to talk about this for people, for gay people who might feel similarly, but who don't have the wherewithal or the circumstances in their lives to talk about it.
Okay, now's when I want to start my really, slow golf clap, because honestly, that is why I left my job covering the NFL, which I had for 3 decades, Jordan. Right. I felt the same way. I saw things, I took arrows, and I was in a position where I could afford to. And I knew so many of my friends and so many just good, honest people out there couldn't. So like you, I just said, screw it. I'm going to go out there and try to reach some people and try to represent those of us who feel lied to, who feel betrayed by the media, and who want to give voice to actual facts and the truth. Not my truth, the truth. Mm-hmm. I admire you so much for the willingness to do that and to go public with it. So the natural next question is, how have people responded? I love telling you about my friends at besthotgrill.com because they're great people and it's a great company that makes a great product. So with football back, tailgating's back too, whether it's Friday night lights, Saturday college games, or pro Sundays. Solaire tailgate infrared grills set up fast and heat up quickly. Only 3 minutes to get to searing hot temperatures, just like the big backyard Solaires. A Solaire grill, I'm telling you, it'll make you the master of the tailgate with just the juiciest, most flavorful food in the parking lot. And the fast grilling times leaves you more time to enjoy the pregame festivities. They also cool down super fast, so you're not going to miss a minute of the game waiting for this thing to cool down. They're made in the USA. Anywhere, everywhere, and all about infrared grills are portable and perfect for any grilling on the go, from picnics to camping, RVs to boating, but especially tailgating. And this is the perfect holiday gift. I can't think of anyone who loves food that would not want one of these anywhere, everywhere, and all about infrared grills. So first, you can start by amazing your tailgating friends with the great food you grill with your Solaire infrared grill, and then you can gift them to the people that you love. Learn more about these fantastic grills and Solaire's try before you buy demo rental program at besthotgrill.com. Besthotgrill.com, made in America, besthotgrill.com. So the natural next question is, how have people responded?
Some, as you might expect, a lot of negative, but also a lot of positive. The difference is the loudest, most aggressive and negative people were public with it. And the people who were most positive and warm and welcoming were private about it because they themselves don't want to be the target of attack. But you know what? One of my friends said, Jordan, why don't you close the comments on, for example, your Instagram posts? And I don't read them. I have my friend read them for me and let me know if anything in there I should respond to. Turns out not much. So why go in there at all? When you're in a moment like this where where you're just being attacked by hundreds of people and they come up with they use their mental, their cleverness for hatred. They ask their minds, how can I say the most hurtful thing, pull it out, write it out, and send it. And so I don't go into the comments, but my friend said at one point, why don't you just close the comments? And I said, no, this is actually perfect. I don't have to lift a finger or speak a word because this is a perfect encapsulation of the modern left of a serious problem that's taken root in the modern left, which is a total incuriosity, a lack of open-mindedness, which is not what I grew up thinking of when it came to the Democratic Party, for example. My mom is a Kennedy buff, and we have all the Kennedy books in the family home still. And so I grew up thinking of the Democratic Party as Jack and Bobby and Martin, JFK and Bobby Kennedy and Dr. King. And today you look around and it's a lot of people who are genuinely incurious. And so I was just thinking earlier, we're reaching a point now, I think, where people like me are coming forward way after genuinely courageous people like you and people who truly did risk things when it was so much more unpopular and risky. But now we're reaching that point where then you have the mid people like me coming along. Then you have people who are beginning to come along, but we're getting to a point where what's being revealed are the genuinely incurious people. I'm not talking about the people who have genuine policy disagreements. I have friends who are tried and true Democrats who call me on the phone, even though we disagree, so we can talk about policy, talk about our differences. That's healthy. America should be more like that, healthy debate. I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking about people who are deeply just knee-jerk offended by what you have to say, launch back with insults intended to shame and silence. And it's that kind of incuriosity that is being revealed, I think, through, for example, comment sections like mine have been.
Well, you say shame and silence. And I think that silence part is so important and that's where I first really sort of noticed it. And it got my attention was during, of course, COVID, when I posted an article on Facebook by a doctor. This article was written by a doctor who was in support of some kind of treatment that was being poo-pooed by the rest of everyone. And just posting this without any commentary, or just, this is an interesting perspective, I think is what I wrote above the article. Oh my gosh. I just, whoa, the backlash was severe. And I thought, okay, either they all are, like you said, incurious, or they just want me to shut the hell up. And that is so sinister, and it does take some courage to say, I'm sorry, no matter what you call me, no matter what you say about me, I'm not going to shut up, and the willingness to put yourself out there, because I do think that is a large part of their strategy is just to shame people, to use names to shut people up. It's good to hear that you're having conversations. Sidebar here for a second, Jordan. If your mom is this Kennedy buff, what was her reaction to RFK Jr. supporting Trump?
Absolutely thrilled.
Really?
Absolutely thrilled. Yes, because she began to follow Bobby Kennedy. And she had said, there's no way I'm voting, like so many people, there's no way I'm voting for a Biden-Harris continuation because this is a charade. Like so many of us clearly saw. It wasn't at one point, it's not even worth talking about. The fact that people were going on for hours and hours on podcasts talking about whether Kamala Harris was it was absurd. The whole thing was absurd to so many people, but people, again, didn't talk about it. So what we saw in the media, what we saw reflected back as the public discourse was completely tilted, because even my Democrat hardcore friends, I'd sit at dinner with them and they'd be like, we know the problems with Biden and Harris, and like, I'm going to begrudgingly vote for them, but like, it's a huge problem. And I understand people that aren't even going out to vote this time. My mom was one of those people who was completely uninspired by Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, and saw Bobby Kennedy as someone who was honest and speaking his mind and quick to apologize if he was wrong about something, and genuinely cared about the American people. What I think shocked so many of us, and this is a sidebar and a sidebar, was the treatment of him by his family.
Yeah.
That's shocking, and that was just really, really, really shocking. And it wasn't just the polite public disagreement, which they had already done years before. I think in a letter to a newspaper from the family saying we disagree strenuously with his policies, but it was the vitriol with which they condemned him publicly, increasingly so as the election day came closer. That was such a bummer to see the unraveling of America's great dynasty, you know? Mm-hmm. But the fact that Trump brought him on is a testament to the fact that this really truly is a unity party. And again, very interesting. People don't talk about it enough. I just saw a photo of President Trump, Elon Musk, Tulsi Gabbard, RFK Jr, all former Democrats, just like you and me.
Yeah, isn't it something? Who doesn't have trouble sleeping? It's a huge problem for people these days, including me. Let me tell you what I found to help me sleep better. It is not a drug. It is not a prescription. It is a cream. And I put it on at bedtime. Simple. Listen, I was a skeptic, but I tried it and I was amazed that it works and I sleep great. The company is Sleep Cream, Sleep, C-R-E-M-E. They use all natural CBD combined with the finest essential oils. It smells good, so you get that kind of aromatherapy while you're falling to sleep as well. I just put it on before turning in, bottoms of my feet, inside of my forearms. That works best for me. You could put it on the sides of your neck. And within minutes, it helps me relax and allows my body to do what it's supposed to do, which is sleep at night. And you can find them at sleepcream.com. Just try it for a couple nights. See if it works for you as well as it does for me. And if it doesn't, Sleep Cream will refund your purchase, guaranteed. You don't have to return anything. Go to sleepcream.com. That's sleepcream.com with cream spelled CREME.com. And for the next few weeks, use the code GAMEDAY, all one word, at checkout to get free standard shipping on your order. That's GameDay at checkout, all one word, for free standard shipping. Are you ready for your best sleep ever? Sleepcream.com. Sleep, CREME.com.
Very interesting. People don't talk about it enough. I just saw a photo of President Trump, Elon Musk, Tulsi Gabbard, RFK Jr, all former Democrats, just like you and me.
Yeah, isn't it something? It really, truly, it's with this wind of change we're sensing is remarkable. So your mom, is she now a Trump voter?
She is. She's one of the most enthusiastic. And so this just goes to show you the transformation that can happen when you have a small willingness to change your mind.
Yeah.
And I said, Mom, it's so not like you to be angry like this. I truly said to her, never in my life have I seen you this angry about something. And it's about someone you don't even know, about whom you're seeing clips that are tightly edited by people who have a narrative that they wish to push forward. And she slowly but surely was open to seeing him differently. And again, it can be a long winding path. For some, it's quicker than others. But now she's an enthusiastic Trump supporter.
I think what's interesting is that when someone hears someone say, hey, I'm an enthusiastic Trump supporter, they immediately think, people who are not as open-minded immediately think, and I've seen some of these posts, that you don't care about women, that, you don't care about reproductive rights, that you think whites are supreme, that black and brown people are second-class citizens. Honestly, these allegations that make me sick, because I'm not offended by them, because you can't offend me. That's my decision to be offended, and I choose not to be. But I'm like, do you really, like, quite frankly, a neighbor of mine, and I'm thinking to myself, and she knows where I stand, and I'm thinking, does she really think this of me? Now, clearly she doesn't. But here's the thing. It's not like I think this is in a way a movement, because it's not necessarily people going, I accept him for all of his flaws. There's something bigger here, and you guys amplified stuff about Trump that really might not have been worth amplifying. And you did it for the purpose of beating him. And this is not new in politics. I read a lot of American history. Sure. This is not new in politics, but it was severe. And when you get into terminology like Nazi, white supremacy, white Christian nationalist, all that kind of stuff, people want to run away. It is. That's
beyond the pale. I don't think it's ever been like that before. Again, if you ask yourself, it's okay, of course, to have the thought, does he hate women? So ask yourself the question, does he hate women? But don't suffice it to, it really truly isn't enough to watch a couple clips from organizations that do, of course, have an agenda beyond simply reporting the news. This isn't Walter Cronkite. Right. You have to go beyond just taking people's word for it. Just do a little bit of research. Just scratch a little beneath the surface. Take a clip, put it in context, then ask yourself about which policy exactly is he talking about. Of course, what's been lost in this TikTok age of 60-second clips, which is entertaining and fun, I get it, I enjoy it, is nuance. Mm-hmm. Nuance has been lost, and I love nuance. I've counseled and coached people for over a decade, and nuance is quite literally what you do day in and day out, learning who people are, learning to see beyond maybe the personality that they present, learning their nuances. I understand most people, again, don't have the time, the energy to do that about a reviled figure. I get that. But at least be open-minded when someone who seems somewhat trustworthy and intelligent says, hold up, we need to look into this again. I think some people are being manipulated. I think one of the things is people have pride. I get it. And they don't want to admit that they've been lied to. Mm-hmm. So in some cases, it's almost a subconscious drive or an unconscious drive to not find out that,
so that they don't have to admit that they were wrong.
So that they don't have to admit that they're wrong. And because, listen, when I went through my sort of, what can you call it that isn't so grandiose, like not an awakening, but an awakening, not like a, whatever it was, it's disillusioning. It's very disillusioning. And you have to sort of then return to the foundation of the foundation of the foundation and ask yourself, is that true? Yeah. You have to question a lot of things that you previously just accepted as it's fact. Someone asked you about it and you laugh and you go, what? Yeah. Of course that's true. Turns out.
I think one of those foundations, Jordan, is the media. You mentioned CNN and MSNBC, two of the major culprits of really seemingly, and I would add to that, by the way, NPR.
That was one of my things that was one of the things that growing up in Boston, where NPR was just like every educated person listens to NPR in the car. On my drive home from school, I would listen to NPR, and it has this whole energy of making you feel educated.
Yes.
Well, because Jordan, I think it's the tone that they take, and they bring on professors, and what we've learned.
Michele, that's very interesting that you say that. Piggybacking on that idea, I have a Kenyan scholar here with me to talk about the use of plastics.
Wow, how about the increasing cost of health insurance? I mean, it can be overwhelming. And do you feel like you even have control over your healthcare dollars? Let me introduce you to ShareRight, healthcare done the right way. At ShareRight, you're not just a number, you're part of a caring community. And forget about paying excessive premiums. With ShareRight, you stand to save 30 to 50% compared to health insurance. Now think about what you could do with all those savings. But it goes beyond the savings. ShareRight ensures you have access to the care you deserve precisely when you need it. From routine checkups to unexpected emergencies, with ShareRight, your healthcare is their top priority. So empower yourself today by taking control of your healthcare costs. Visit shareright.org/Tafoya to learn more and see how much you can save. Visit shareright.org/Tafoya. So ShareRight, all one term, ShareRight.org/TAFOYA for healthcare done the right way.
When I realized that they are among the worst offenders of misinformation and lies, and again, it's not just, if you have an agenda, I get it, but at least maybe be a little bit more upfront about your agenda and don't purport to be a purveyor of the truth.
Right.
And an organization that dispels falsehoods.
Right.
Because you're creating them. And that NPR, I'm glad you brought it up, was a disillusioning thing for me. I was like,
I know,
if NPR, what else? And turns out
trust
a lot.
That. Yeah. I mean, seriously. And if you look at even the direction that Sesame Street has gone on some occasions of, trying to indoctrinate kids, that's heartbreaking. I grew up with Bert and Ernie and the Cookie Monster and all of them. I loved them. And, but look, I think we've seen this cycle of government having so much power because people trusted and believed
as they should.
But now we've been kind of proven to be suckers in some cases. So I guess let's wrap with this topic. The media has taken quite a beating through this thing. We now hear that NBC Paramount, or Comcast, I should say, is going to be selling off CNBC, MSNBC, some of those cable entities. We know that CNN is going through a massive, dare I say, bloodbath, or am I promoting violence, Jordan? They're going they're going through a bloodbath of sorts of people just getting, fired. They're going to have to really start from scratch. Do you think this is the moment where we are about to enter a new age of journalism, or do you think there are just too many people in the powerful positions who don't want to do that?
I think that there's hope. I do for journalism. I think I've seen a lot of people, journalists talk on X, for example, about how they simply don't have the energy to go through another 4 years of what they went through as sort of, what do you call it? Like minions of a system that wants to, set them out to be destroyers of reputation,
Interesting.
It's like, they're tired of it. And I think the public's tired of it too. Even people who think Trump is a disgusting, misogynist bombast are tired of being, are tired of being tired. They're like, some of my friends, again, in New York, who don't get the shift at all because for whatever reason, and they're tired. I called them after the election and said, so what's the energy on the ground in Manhattan? Bastion of leftism. And they said, it's actually different. It's very different than it was in 2016. People back then were truly shell-shocked and angry and upset. There was the Pussy March or whatever it was called. There was a march for this and a march for that. And people were very upset. And now people are going about their lives. They know that gays aren't going to be thrown in internment camps, although some people do genuinely believe that. But the energy is different. And so I think the question for journalism and media is there an appetite for what they might want to continue putting out? And the answer, I think, is no. We've seen that in the ratings drops at CNN and MSNBC, who I think, again, one of the worst offenders. Specifically, Joy Reid, I think, is one of the truly, I think, a dangerous person. Of course, I'll fight to the death for her ability, her right to speak freely.
You and me both.
But it's my right also to say she's a dangerous voice in that she's a constant purveyor of mischaracterizations and mistruths. And if she's wondering why there is any racial divide or why the racial divide increased after, say, 2008 or 2012, that period. I wonder why. She can point the finger in part at herself for that. Yeah. And, I, along with many other people, are now willing to step up, and we don't care if you call us racist or homophobic or transphobic or a misogynist, a woman. You can call me whatever name you want. I'm going to say what is patently obvious to most people in the country, that when you pit people against each other based on their race, and you're the one doing it, then you have some fault here in this mess we found ourselves in. And so with her ratings drops and other people's ratings drops, I think that shows you that the appetite is lower from the public for that kind of nonsense.
I wonder what's going to happen to The View, because they had like one of their biggest ratings weeks ever after the election. And I know it was in large part because people like my husband were like, I got to see this. I got to see this meltdown. I got to.
We were talking about this last night.
Yeah. So, just people tuning in to see what the reaction was going to be. Sunny Hostin, in my estimation, is almost as bad as Joy Reid. Yeah, she is terrible. And, to see her have to read that legal note the other day about Matt Gaetz was rather enjoyable. But that show, I just wonder, the rumors are they're panicking at ABC and they've got to hire some Trump supporters on that show. I don't know how
big. And about that, I have to say this. Yeah. When people forget about me, I'm talking about the people who have supported Trump since, say, 2015, 2016, and who saw, who wanted what he was coming forward with, and at great risk to their family lives, to their professional lives, publicly supported him, and were, for lack of a better term, crapped on, and completely derided, not just for the couple weeks that I've been, made fun of on the internet, but truly for years had their reputations and their dignity smeared and dragged through the mud. It's those people that I wouldn't blame if they say, I don't care who you get on to represent me, I'm never giving you a viewer. You'd have to turn over the whole show, create a new show, because the DNA here is so twisted. That double helix is all fucked up. It's got to be thrown out. It's got to be thrown away. And we need some new maybe shows that represent honestly the United States of America, and not one token Republican who doesn't support the incumbent Republican president and takes every opportunity to mock them.
Yeah.
There needs to be a genuine representation of America. That's what we haven't seen before. But as more and more people come out and just talk honestly about their feelings without genuine anger or rancor, but I think it's really important not just to know what the things that you don't want, but it's really more important to know what you do want. To know what site you have your sight set on, for lack of better phrasing. And for me, it's like America is the country it is, and it's enabled me to be an openly gay man, and to, at 15 years old, walk down the street holding hands with my boyfriend. And I've never had to worry about my safety or security, not once in my life in the United States of America. I get messages from people in Africa. I got a message from a guy in Nigeria a few months ago saying, what do I do? You say that, coming out heals your life in part, which I believe it does. But he said, I can't do that. It might heal my spirit, but it could kill me. And I had to say to him, don't risk coming out. Try and get to your nearest. You can set your sights on getting to the nearest city at some point, and maybe you can be more free there. But that just goes to show you the contrast of freedoms that are taken for granted here, left and right, by gays, by women, by Black people, by Jews. Like, we have incredible freedom here, incredible liberty. And if we just take a little bit of gratitude, and we have, coming up Thanksgiving is a moment to ask ourselves, like, why are we grateful for this country? We've done that for the past several years in our family. We go around and say what we're grateful for about living in this country. And it's always like a really moving, poignant, what each person chooses to say is moving and poignant. We are so fortunate. I think we aren't just fortunate. I think we're blessed. I think there's something divine happening here in this country. And if you see America as something to be destroyed, if you see America as just something lacking in a revolution, rather than something that has created the greatest prosperity and liberties for human beings than we've ever seen before in human civilization, then your mind starts changing about a lot of things.
Well said. I think that's the perfect spot. I could talk to you for hours, Jordan, and what we'll do is we'll have you back so we can keep doing this.
I'd love that.
Yeah, this was fantastic. It's so enjoyable to meet you, get your perspective, hear your voice, and understand how you were intellectually curious and open-minded enough to ask yourself some big old questions and find the answers on your own. He is Jordan Bach. You can find him at Jordan, JORDANBACH and we'll post all of this stuff in the show notes. And of course, you're seeing it on your screen if you're watching us on YouTube. I love it. Absolutely tremendous. Folks, like Jordan, be brave, do good. Thanks, Jordan. We will see you next time.
Thank you.